Absolutely. Let's dive into the eerie realms of darkness and mystery. Here are 12 spine-chilling trucker tales filled with ghostly roads, spectral figures, and cryptid nightmares, complete with ominous backstories and bone-chilling conclusions. Keep the lights on for this one. The Lantern Ghost of Hollow Bend. Hollow Bend Road was a foggy, treacherous route, infamous for accidents. Truckers told tales of an old man carrying a lantern, wandering aimlessly in the dark. Joe, a trucker passing through, thought it was just a myth. That night, his radio crackled with static, and a glowing light appeared in the middle of the road. Slamming his brakes, Joe saw the man's face, half skeletal, half burned. The ghost whispered, "Turn back, or share my fate." Ignoring the warning, Joe pressed on, only to find himself stuck in an endless loop, the bend repeating until dawn, his fuel nearly gone. The Beast of Rusted Creek. Rusted Creek ran through an overgrown forest, silent except for the occasional snap of a branch. Phil, a seasoned trucker, pulled over for a nap but was awoken by low growls. Outside his cab stood a creature with matted fur, human-like hands, and glowing yellow eyes. As Phil locked eyes with the beast, it charged, slamming against the door. The creature clawed at the steel until the sun rose, then vanished into the woods, leaving Phil with deep gouges on his rig and nightmares that never faded. The Woman in White. Long nights on the Arizona highways were nothing new for Jake, a long-haul trucker. Late one night, he spotted a woman in a white dress standing alone by the road, her veil fluttering in the wind. Thinking she was stranded, he slowed down, but she suddenly appeared inside his cab, her voice an echoing whisper, "Take me home." When he refused, her face melted away, revealing a hollow skull. Jake swerved off the road and woke up hours later, his truck unharmed but a bloody handprint on his dashboard. The Shadow Pack of Dark Timber Road. Dark Timber Road was avoided by most drivers, but Mike had a delivery to make. As his truck rumbled through the wooded stretch, shadows began to move alongside him. At first he thought it was deer, until the deer stood up on two legs and began running alongside his truck. They were lean, with gaping mouths filled with rows of sharp teeth. When he sped up, the creatures howled and leapt onto his trailer, leaving it covered in claw marks and dented metal. To this day, no one else has seen the pack and returned. The Crying Bride of Whispering Canyon. Lenny had heard the stories about Whispering Canyon, where a bride in her wedding gown supposedly roamed, crying for her lost husband. Dismissing them as silly myths, he took the shortcut. Halfway through, his radio began playing static, punctuated by faint sobbing. When his headlights flickered, she appeared, her eyes hollow and her gown torn. She wailed, "You left me," as she lunged toward his windshield. Lenny never returned to that road, haunted by the handprint frozen in frost on his glass. The Wendigo's Hunger. In the snowy stretches of northern Michigan, truckers whispered about the Wendigo, a skeletal cryptid with an insatiable hunger. Ben's engine overheated one frigid night, forcing him to stop. As he worked under the hood, a foul smell filled the air. Turning, he saw it. A towering figure, flesh stretched taut over its bones, blackened eyes fixed on him. Ben scrambled into his cab as the Wendigo clawed at the door. He survived the night, but when he checked the truck, deep scratches ran across the hood, and his engine block had been ripped out. The Phantom Semi. It was nearly midnight when Rob noticed headlights closing in behind him, fast. He assumed it was another trucker until the lights passed through his cab, illuminating it with an eerie blue glow. The semi sped ahead but left no dust or tire marks. Later, other truckers told him the Phantom Semi appears as a warning. Drivers who follow it are said to disappear. The Howler at Devil's Ridge. Devil's Ridge Road was cursed, or so they said. Mark didn't believe it until he heard a bone-chilling howl echo through the canyon. As he rounded the next curve, a massive figure resembling a wolf stood on the ridge, watching him. When it jumped down, landing unnaturally softly in front of his truck, Mark barely braked in time. The creature rose on 2 legs and growled before vanishing into the cliffs. Locals claimed it was the Howler, a protector of the land, and anyone who saw it never came back unchanged. The Hitcher's Warning. Pete had always picked up hitchhikers. It was his way of giving back. But one late night in Nevada, the man he picked up seemed odd. He sat silently, staring out the window, until he finally said, "You shouldn't take this road tonight." Startled, Pete asked why, but the man just smiled and disappeared, leaving behind a smoldering burn on the seat. Moments later, Pete's truck stalled, and a massive figure emerged from the desert, a glowing-eyed cryptid Pete couldn't describe even later without trembling. The Skinwalker on the Sierra Pass. Driving through a remote pass in the Sierra Nevada, Maria thought she saw a stranded child at the edge of the road. When she pulled over, the figure darted into the woods. Thinking it was scared, she grabbed her flashlight and approached. What emerged from the trees wasn't a child, but a gaunt, human-like creature with animalistic movements. She barely made it back to her cab as the creature scratched and howled at her door, the sound echoing through the mountains. Local folklore points to skinwalkers, shape-shifting entities tied to dark legends. The Hitchhiker with Hollow Eyes. Joe, a long-haul trucker, once picked up a hitchhiker on a foggy Oregon road. The man climbed into the cab, silent but for the occasional strange laugh. Joe asked questions, but the hitchhiker never answered. After a few miles, he turned to look, and the hitchhiker was gone, the seat empty. Days later, Joe learned locals called this road Reaper's Lane for its history of fatal accidents. The hitchhiker? A ghost of someone who'd never reached his destination. The Forgotten Highway Phantom. On an abandoned road in Utah, a lone semi sat on the shoulder, its lights flickering. Pulling over to help, Jake found the cab empty but running. A figure appeared in the truck's mirror, a man with empty eye sockets. The semi roared to life and drove itself into the darkness, leaving Jake frozen in fear.